The Willow Ridge neighborhood looked like something out of a retirement brochure. Identical mailboxes, precision-cut hedges, and neighbors who waved with two fingers while hiding judgment in their eyes. My wife called it charming. I called it camouflaged tyranny. We moved in last year to be closer to our grandson after 25 years of military life. I'd seen war zones with more honesty than this place. And at the center of its rotten core stood Brent Mallory, the self-appointed security chair of the HOA. He wasn't law enforcement, but that didn't stop him from wearing a knockoff uniform complete with aviators, a badge he ordered online, and a utility belt straight out of a Halloween store. He patrolled like he thought he was guarding a nuclear facility. Most residents avoided conflict. I didn't. "Mr. Grady," he'd say, drawing out the syllables like an insult. "Your truck is casting a shadow 2 inches onto common ground." I'd smile. "And your ego's casting a shadow over the whole damn block." That was our dance. Week after week, petty violations for imagined offenses. My American flag too bright, my garden hose unsightly, my grandson's sidewalk chalk graffiti. Brent lived for the power. The rules weren't about order, they were about control. But I let it slide. I'd retired from war, not looking to start a new one. That changed when Cody came home. My son, Staff Sergeant Cody Grady, was everything Brent pretended to be. Special Forces. Decorated. Stoic. He'd done 4 tours, trained in asymmetric warfare, and carried the kind of discipline you can't fake. He came home for 2 weeks of leave, no agenda, just time with family. He rolled in with a matte black SUV, windows tinted, bumper lined with unit decals. The kind of vehicle that screams government issue and earns salutes from real cops. Brent was on him within hours. I was sipping coffee on the porch when I saw the patrol cart cruise past slower than usual. Brent's eyes locked on Cody's vehicle like a hawk spotting prey. He stopped, got out, took photos, scribbled something on his clipboard. Cody emerged from the garage mid-set, shirtless, sweat glistening, arms like steel cables. Brent squared up, undeterred. "This vehicle violates Section 4.3c. No tactical or combat-style vehicles may be parked in view." Cody raised an eyebrow. "It's a government-issued transport. You want to explain how that's combat style?" Brent ignored him. "You a resident here?" Cody didn't blink. "This is my father's house. I'm here on leave. Staff Sergeant Cody Grady, United States Army." Brent stiffened, but didn't back down. "You need to move the vehicle, or it will be cited. And you'll need to register your presence with the HOA." Cody tilted his head. "You're not law enforcement. You're a mall cop in a subdivision." The silence that followed was like a coiled spring. Brent's face flushed, but he left, muttering about intimidation and insubordination. I watched his golf cart disappear around the corner, but the tension didn't leave with him. That night, Cody and I grilled steaks in the backyard, trying to laugh it off. But I saw the shift in his eyes, the subtle alertness of a man who knows when he's being watched. And he was. Over the next few days, Brent doubled his patrols. Parked across the street. Filmed Cody jogging. Once, he even paced by the house with a tape measure, claiming Cody's parked SUV extended into the visibility triangle. Then came the envelope. Typed, laminated, and nailed, yes, nailed, to our front door. Final notice. Unauthorized occupant. Vehicle must be removed. Security action pending. Cody read it, jaw tight. He didn't say a word. He just folded the paper, placed it on the table, and went upstairs. The silence was louder than any explosion. That's when I knew. Brent thought he was in control. He thought his paper authority and plastic badge gave him dominion over this little patch of suburbia. But he didn't realize what he'd stirred. He didn't know who Cody really was, or what he was capable of when threatened. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The next morning cracked open with stillness. Not even the birds dared to sing. I stood at the kitchen sink watching steam rise from my coffee when I saw Brent's golf cart parked across the street. Engine off, window down, eyes locked on our driveway. He sat there, arms folded like a sentry on patrol, pretending not to stare. But I knew the look. The kind of quiet a man, whereas before doing something stupid. Cody came downstairs in his usual morning gear, sweat-wicking shirt, compression shorts, earbuds hanging loose. He nodded to me, grabbed a protein bar, and headed out for his run. The moment the front door clicked shut, Brent moved. I dropped the mug and bolted for the front. Cody had barely reached the curb when Brent stormed up, hand twitching at his hip. At first glance, it looked like another argument brewing, but this time, Brent wasn't holding a clipboard. He was holding a gun. "Stop right there," Brent barked, voice cracking with adrenaline. I said, "Hands where I can see them." Cody halted mid-step, instantly assessing. His posture didn't flinch, but his voice dropped low, calm, controlled, commanding. "Put the weapon down. Now." "You're threatening me with your stance?" Brent barked. "You're trained. I know what that means." I stepped into the yard, heart thudding like a war drum. "Brent, this is insane. Put the gun down." But Brent didn't move. His hand shook slightly, but his eyes were locked, tunnel-visioned, drunk on fear and delusion. His finger hovered too close to the trigger. Cody raised his hand slowly, eyes never leaving Brent's. "You're escalating a situation you don't understand. You don't have the authority or the training." And then Brent twitched. Maybe it was a slip. Maybe it was intent. But in that split-second motion, something inside Cody activated, reflex carved from muscle memory and battlefield instinct. He closed the distance in a blink. One swift movement, he pivoted, sidestepped, locked Brent's wrist in a reverse twist. The gun dropped. Cody kicked it aside and drove Brent to the ground, face first, arm pinned behind his back. It was over in 3 seconds. Brent screamed, not in pain, but in rage. "You've assaulted me. You're under arrest. This is citizens enforcement." "No, Brent," Cody said coldly, kneeling beside him. "This is restraint. If I wanted you broken, you'd be in traction." Police sirens echoed down the street. A neighbor must have seen everything and called it in. Good. We needed real authority now. When the cruiser rolled up, Cody stepped back, hands raised to show compliance. He didn't run, didn't yell, just calmly pointed to the disarmed weapon. The officers took one look at the scene and the footage from our Ring camera and slapped cuffs on Brent. "Sir, you're under arrest for brandishing a weapon and impersonating a law enforcement officer," one officer said, barely masking his disgust. "I am enforcement," Brent yelled, spittle flying. "I have authority under the HOA. Look at my badge." "It's plastic," the officer said flatly. "And this isn't cosplay." As they read him his rights, neighbors trickled out onto their porches. Phones raised. Cameras rolling. Whispers hissed like wind through leaves. Cody stood tall, unmoved. That night, Brent was the talk of the entire county. News spread fast, especially with the video uploaded online. A uniformed man pulling a gun on an unarmed veteran? It went viral before sundown. But while Brent sat in holding, his reach extended from the shadows. The HOA board held an emergency session, behind closed doors. No notice. No public input. The next morning, a certified letter landed in our mailbox. Pending review of recent incident. Temporary ban from Willow Ridge common areas. Vehicle to be removed within 48 hours. Failure to comply may result in legal action. Signed by the HOA president. Backed by 4 board members. All of them Brent's friends. Cody held the letter between 2 fingers like it was a roach. "They're trying to bury this," I said, while rising. "They just poked the wrong bear," Cody replied. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rage. He simply turned, walked upstairs, and returned 10 minutes later with a manila folder labeled ROE, Rules of Engagement. Inside was more than just HOA bylaws. There were state statutes, federal protections, names of lawyers, and a single printed photo of Brent pointing the gun. "You're not going to war with them, are you?" I asked. Cody looked me dead in the eye. "No, Dad. I am the war." Cody's war didn't start with fists or fury. It started with paperwork. He called it strategic escalation. Every action had to be precise, legal, and public. There would be no shouting matches or physical confrontations. Cody wanted something more permanent: accountability. By sunrise, he had filed a formal complaint with the county sheriff's office. Brent's arrest had already triggered a criminal investigation, but Cody's additions, affidavits, annotated HOA bylaws, even footage of previous harassment, turned it into a full-scale probe. Next came the HOA. Cody didn't bother with their internal complaint process. He went over their heads, contacting the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. Within hours, an investigator was dispatched to audit Willow Ridge's board practices. Brent's plastic badge and shadow patrols? Violations of multiple state codes. The emergency board meeting with no notice? Illegal under sunshine laws. Cody had them in a chokehold of red tape. Meanwhile, I watched the neighborhood transform. The people who once whispered behind curtains now openly approached us. Neighbors, ones who'd quietly suffered under Brent's tyrannical citations, came forward with their own stories. Brent fined me $500 for my daughter's birthday balloons. He said my therapy dog was a nuisance breed and threatened eviction. I caught him photographing my teenage son coming out of the pool. Cody listened to everyone, took notes. Names, dates, photos. Then he launched a website, willowridgewatch.com, a clean, anonymous platform exposing every unlawful action taken by the HOA. Redacted letters, legal citations, video clips, a heat map of all Brent's bogus citations. Within a day, it had over 10,000 views. The HOA board scrambled. They issued cease and desist letters. Cody responded by posting them online, highlighted, dissected, and paired with his formal rebuttals. He remained polite, clinical, unshakable. But Brent's allies weren't done. 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of tires crunching gravel. I opened the curtain and saw 3 men in hoodies unloading buckets of black paint. Cody had anticipated this. Motion sensors lit up the yard like a prison yard. Floodlights blazed. Sirens wailed. And from under the porch roof, a high-resolution security camera tracked every move. The men ran, but not before being caught on at least 4 cameras, including a neighbor's Ring doorbell. The footage went straight to the sheriff. Turns out, one of the vandals was a cousin of the HOA treasurer. Another was Brent's nephew. That was the tipping point. Cody took everything, every incident, every name, every detail, and walked into the town hall with a stack of printed evidence an inch thick. He requested a formal hearing. "You sure you want to go through with this?" I asked him that morning, watching him dress in full uniform, medals, ribbons, insignia gleaming under the collar. "I'm not just doing this for me," he said. "I'm doing it for every neighbor they silenced with fear." The hearing was public. Cody made sure of that. He presented his case with surgical precision. No drama. Just facts. Video evidence. Legal precedent. Names redacted for safety. When he played the clip of Brent aiming the gun, the room fell deathly quiet. Then came the witnesses. Mrs. Evers, the 80-year-old widow fined for planting daisies without HOA approval. The Nguyen family, cited for excessive cultural decor during Lunar New Year. And the Thompsons, whose autistic son was reported by Brent for disturbing noises during therapy sessions. The board sat silent, their faces pale and sweat-dappled. Their only defense was procedural jargon, excuses about misunderstandings and poor communication. But the sheriff's investigator wasn't buying it. By the end of the hearing, 2 board members resigned. The treasurer was subpoenaed, and Brent, still in custody, was officially barred from holding any HOA or civic leadership role pending criminal trial. It was a landslide. We returned home to something I hadn't seen in months: peace. Neighbors brought us casseroles. Children chalked "Thank you, Cody" across our driveway. For the first time, Willow Ridge felt like a community, not a compound. Still, I noticed Cody wasn't celebrating. That night, he sat alone in the backyard, nursing a glass of iced tea and staring out into the dark. "You did it, son," I said, joining him. "You held them accountable." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but they weren't the real threat." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He turned to me, eyes like tempered steel. There's a system that allowed Brent to rise. A culture that applauded him while pretending not to see. And unless that changes, there'll be another Brent. I sat beside him in silence, the weight of his words settling in. Because he was right. But what Brent and his cronies didn't realize was that they'd awakened something much bigger than fear. They'd awakened a soldier who wasn't just locked and loaded, he was just getting started. The court date came quicker than expected. Brent, now out on bail, strutted into the county courthouse in a wrinkled suit, still wearing the smugness of a man who thought the world owed him deference. His lawyer was some television-chinned, big-city import, clearly expecting an easy win against what he assumed was a neighborhood misunderstanding. But Cody didn't come to court as a neighbor. He came as a soldier on a mission. He wore his formal dress blues, not for intimidation, but as a quiet reminder of what real service looked like. The courtroom buzzed with tension as people packed the gallery. News vans idled outside. Brent's name had become synonymous with HOA abuse, and this trial was the flashpoint. The prosecutor opened with footage of the gun incident. Brent's trembling hands. His paranoid shouting. The moment Cody disarmed him with military precision. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Brent's lawyer objected, claiming self-defense. He argued Brent believed he was enforcing HOA regulations and feared for his life. But the prosecutor had done her homework. Mr. Sanders was not authorized by any governing body to carry or brandish a firearm in the course of HOA duties, she said coolly. In fact, no such position exists under their charter. He created it, fabricated authority, then used it to harass, intimidate, and endanger residents. Then Cody took the stand. He didn't dramatize. He spoke with the clarity of a man trained to deliver battlefield reports. Calm, direct, surgical. I didn't respond with force. I responded with control, he said. My training required it. But make no mistake, if he'd pulled that trigger, I wouldn't be here. Neither would he. He paused, letting the weight settle. And if he'd pointed that gun at a child, an untrained civilian, this trial would be about a funeral. Brent's lawyer tried to poke holes, to paint Cody as aggressive. Isn't it true you're trained to neutralize threats? I'm trained to assess threats, Cody replied. And Brent Sanders was never a threat, just a danger to himself and others. The courtroom fell silent. By the time closing arguments ended, there wasn't a doubt left. The verdict, guilty on all counts. Brent was sentenced to 3 years, with additional mandatory counseling and permanent revocation of any leadership positions in public or private associations. He left the courtroom in cuffs, screaming about conspiracies. But the real change didn't end with Brent's downfall. Cody turned his momentum into action. Using his newfound visibility, he partnered with local veterans, legal advocates, and community leaders to establish Civic Guard, a nonprofit offering legal aid and protection for residents targeted by overreaching HOAs. Their mission: to protect the vulnerable, educate the unaware, and dismantle corruption, block by block. Willow Ridge elected a new board shortly after Brent's conviction. This time, the election was public, transparent, and supervised by the county clerk. Cody didn't run for a seat. He didn't want power. He wanted peace. Still, they named him honorary ombudsman, a voice of reason, a symbol of resistance. One morning, weeks after everything had settled, I found Cody in the garage restoring his old motorcycle, the one he hadn't touched since coming home. You finally got around to fixing it, I said, handing him a socket wrench. He gave a small smile. Figure it was time. I studied him for a moment. The lines on his face seemed softer. The weight he carried a little lighter. You ever think about leaving? I asked. Sometimes, he admitted. But I realized something out there in the chaos. What's that? Home isn't just where you live. It's where you stand. He tightened a bolt, then looked at me. And when people try to poison it, you don't run. You cleanse it. Outside, neighbors laughed as they walked dogs and pushed strollers. Lawns looked greener. Fences didn't feel like barriers anymore, just frames for families. Cody wiped the grease from his hands and walked out onto the driveway. He looked around, not like a watchdog, but like a guardian satisfied with the ground he'd reclaimed. As the sun rose behind him, casting long shadows over the freshly poured concrete, I realized the truth. They'd pulled a gun on the wrong man. They thought fear would make him retreat. But instead, they taught him to lead. And now, the whole neighborhood was finally free.